guest. And I'd like to introduce you to the guest from afar, Paul Lacey.
Hello. Hello everyone. There's probably a couple of people that I know in there. Am I allowed to say something? Can you hear me?
Actually, I just need to check with you. Is anybody against... I want to turn one of these cameras around so Paul can see you. If anybody has any objections, can I ask them to sit over that side? So I'll try and do it just this side. So I will turn this camera around, and fingers crossed, Paul will be able to see you. So I will just...
I don't want to look at Tommy, is that possible? Oh,
yeah.
Too late.
So hold on, I'm just going to bring Paul in, and then I'm going to bring in the second camera so Paul can see. There you go, Paul.
Brilliant, I can see. Hey everyone.
Hi. Paul, could you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. So I probably know a couple of you in the room there. I definitely know Tommy, and I don't know if Laura's in there. I can't really see as such. But my name's Paul Lacey. I run a small agency. This is my empire back here in Worcestershire, where I used to know Tommy, your buddy over there. So I am from afar. I'm a long way away in Worcestershire. So I run a small agency called Dicky Birds, and also a brand ambassador for RunCloud. I don't wear all these just to sponsor. They just gave me so many t-shirts that I just wear them all the time now. It's the first ones on the pile. So
okay, right. So there you go. So we're getting even comments coming up from Tommy, who's putting comments that we're coming up on there. So it's great. Okay, so what we're doing here, and let me explain before my Mac dies. One of the things you'll notice up here is my battery on my Mac at 79%. I have two chargers plugged in at the moment, and we started at 80%. So it's interesting that it can actually, how long it goes. Right, okay. Simply what we're doing. As I said, I'm using a software called Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live is a Mac-based software. There are a number of other Windows softwares. One of them is called OBS. That's the software that most people use. There isn't much difference. They all do a very similar feature. Paul, what was the software that you used this week?
So I covered Nathan Wrigley's WP Build live news show this week. Normally Nathan would use Ecamm Live. I think that's what you use as well. Which is a Mac-only piece of software, but I'm a PC user, plus I'm not in his office with his physical kit. So we went a different route this week. While he went to Alton Towers, I used StreamYard. It's called StreamYard. I think the website is StreamYard.com, and it's fully browser-based. So we were able to use StreamYard, connect that to Restream, what you're using today, to stream this to multiple places, and that was it. So it was all done in the browser. I just had to press the right buttons, invite my guests, and then that was it.
So when you're doing streaming, the main things that people talk about, or the first thing they think about, is the picture. Actually, the thing you need to really think about is the audio. The thing that everybody wants that will keep people watching is the audio. Unfortunately, the way we're doing this and bringing in Paul, and because I'm pushing it to a main monitor, there will be an echo feedback on the loop, which I can't stop. We've looked at it about 3 times, but we just haven't been able to stop it when I bring in a remote person. But as he's quite important and interesting, it was more interesting to bring him in. So the first thing you're looking at is you're looking at the cameras. You're seeing me here on my FaceTime camera, so there's straight away the FaceTime camera. I've actually got 4 cameras up here that I'm going to show you the difference. So I've got 4 different cameras and 4 different views of me. Even my wife doesn't like this view. So the first one, as I said, is the FaceTime camera. The second one is the Logitech 920. The Logitech 920 is a really good camera that a lot of people use. It's very cost effective in doing this. Normally you can pick it up on the Amazon Black Friday sale, which will be in about a week and a half's time or whenever it is, for under £50. And it's a very popular camera. I think we've got Herb Miller, who's from Portsmouth, on remotely, and Herb, I know, has just bought this camera. The next camera up there is the this Canon here. It's a fixed lens camera. It's reasonable quality, and then the top quality camera is my Sony Vega, that one over there, Sony VG30, not Vega. Um, and the camera quality and that and the depth of field is much, much better. But you can use anything you like. And actually, funnily enough, for a single head person like this, you could argue that the difference in quality is very little, because we're not trying to get a depth of field and you're not far away. Typically you don't stick a camera under somebody's nose if you're trying to do something at a distance. But that side is fine. As that becomes quite annoying, I'm going to go back to a single camera. Question is, how did I swap between the cameras? If I just go to the 920 so you can see, on the 920, this is a thing called a Stream Deck. The Stream Deck is one of the most useful devices I've come across in the last year, and everybody I've seen who does anything like this, who's seen a Stream Deck, goes and gets one. They're about £100, and what they are is this collection of buttons that sit on top of an LCD screen or LED screen, and as you change the button, you can actually define the buttons. And if you look very carefully at the buttons, you may just be able to work out that the buttons are actually live. They're live shots. So as I move, the buttons change, and I can literally go and say that's the 4 shot, that's Nathan, that's Paul, and that's myself back on there, and I can define any button I like in there. It's so useful. You can use this. It's not just for streaming. It actually came from the gaming world, but I have a set of buttons in here for Premiere Pro, so I can do all the commands in Premiere Pro. Anything you want that you need to do, multiple keys, you can do it. It's for PC and Mac as well, so that's not for just Mac. Okay, so I talked about the fact that we were streaming out, and we're going to something called the Restream. The Restream enables us to hit multiple channels at once. So at the moment, we are streaming out in Technicolor to WP and Up. Some of you may be familiar with WP and Up. I'm using their channels. We're going out to Facebook on WP and Up. We're going out on their Twitch account. We're also going out on their YouTube accounts, and then we're going out Periscope, which is Twitter. And the last one is the YouTube account for Wordup Brighton. The reason why we go out to multiple channels is because you'll sit in a room and you'll say to somebody, if you sit in a room and say, do you use Facebook or Twitter? You'll have 20% of people will tell you they don't use Twitter, another 20% of you or more will say they don't use Facebook. So if you want to be able to reach everybody, you've got to go to both channels, and that's typically how we do it. As for YouTube, YouTube is the best channel for enable you to embed the clips, the live into your thing. So, as you can see, the other thing that we can do, and you can do this yourselves, is you can put in, if you're on the YouTube, you can actually put in comments, and you can see these coming through. So go back to the live stream, and I will pull on a quote from Paul Lacey just to show you what I mean. He's put in a comment on there, so we can put in comments as people are coming, and we can actually replace that comment with somebody else's comment. OneDrift phone cameras can be used for this, absolutely, and I'll show you an iPhone camera being used for this in a minute. So we've covered the technology in briefly, different cameras. We've covered the fact that I go out to a streaming platform. We've covered the fact that we are doing it, that the software I use. What I want to do is pass over to Paul so he can just explain some of the things, the business reasons and the cases that he uses it for.
Alright, so just to let you know what kit I've got, so I don't have as good kit as what Leo's got. I've got a Logitech Brio webcam, which is very similar to the 920, it's just a little bit more expensive, it's got a wider angle, it's got a high resolution, which doesn't really make any difference on streams, because the quality of the stream, like Leo said, the video isn't great a lot of the time, so you don't need to invest the extra money on that, so go for the 920. I have a couple of microphones that I use. I've got a Blue Yeti microphone that I use at home, which is really simple and easy to use. It's a USB microphone. The one I'm using now is called
as Tom has got at the back of the room, that's a Yeti.
Yeah. Yeah, they look pretty cool. The one I'm using right here is a Scarlett Studio, and it comes as a set with this thing here. You can see this Focusrite box there, and it comes with a set of headphones and all that sort of stuff. And that's my favourite one that I have permanently connected. The other microphone I've got that I hardly ever use is this one. This is a Samsung Q7, and that's a different type of microphone than the other ones I've got in that it's a dynamic mic. Is that right, Leo? It's a dynamic one versus the condenser.
Which one? This is a dynamic mic here. So the big difference between dynamic and condenser. Condenser microphones need power, so you have to have a desk to make it work. Have a look. There's this great website called Google. It'll tell you all about it.
So anyway, the main thing I know is I like the red one best, which is the Scarlett Studio. It just seems to be really, because I can move, I sometimes move around a bit when I'm talking and stuff, and it picks up everything. Whereas this one, which I forget if it's the condenser or the dynamic, you really got to sit still and be right in front of it, otherwise you'll hear the difference. So if you're recording a tutorial, you might use one like this, but if you're doing a live stream, then you'd want something nice and simple and versatile, like the Blue Yeti or this Scarlett Studio, something like that. Blue do have another one called the Snowball, but I don't think it's particularly good. It's cheaper. It's about half the price as the Blue Yeti. It's about £50, but it doesn't sound particularly good, so I wouldn't really recommend using it. So in terms of how we use it, so I'm sort of talking on behalf of Nathan Wrigley and a few other people today anyway, because Nathan's away today, so I'm covering for him. But I'm part of his weekly live stream show that the WP Builds podcast does, streams live into Facebook and live into YouTube, and it's a panel-based show, so there's usually 4 of us talking, so we all come together, have a chat and talk about the latest news that's going on. Now the cool thing about the live stream is it just allows it to be super casual. So Nathan also does the WP Up podcast, and I know that when he does that podcast and when he does the main WP Builds podcast, and even when he does the normal news simple podcast, it takes a lot of editing, a lot of messing around, and then uploading and publishing and all that kind of thing. Whereas the benefit of the live stream is that he's just got to collect a bunch of people, get some headlines together, and we can all have a nice panel discussion. And the pressure is totally off for it to be super professional, and because everyone is kind of used to this. The idea of live streaming, it's usually bringing a bunch of people together who've got different kit. And so as a result, the normal expectation of live stream is that there's a bit of variance in sound, the video quality can be a bit funny. That's the time that we're living in at the moment. But the cool thing is as well is that the pressure is totally off. So if you want to, do some videos to YouTube or something, then you can probably want to edit them. Otherwise, people have got higher expectations. Whereas if you want to just get an audience, if you've got an audience maybe in social media or on YouTube, and you do live streams, then the big business benefit is time. You just got to get these kind of things in line, these different bits of software, a few bits of cheap hardware, and you're good to go.
I would concur to that a lot. The ability to be able to live stream anything very quickly, very easily, has meant that barrier is gone. I do a lot of other videos. I sit there with video editing. You put something together, someone says, "Oh, can you take 5 seconds out?" And you're like, "Yes, that's another 2 hours work." Because I've got to redo it, get it all done and everything. With live, you just get on with it. When it comes to things like WordCamps and meetups, I've done both of them live and I've done them edited. The editing work, we take longer to edit a WordCamp afterwards than we take to shoot it. And I would argue that once you sit there and you look at the quality of what you end up doing for what you're trying to get over, which is a live talk by people, the quality increase for doing all that hard work is just negligible. It's just negligible.
I think also people are interested in people's personalities and what they've got to say in live streams. A lot of the time, if you watch a YouTube video, you might be sitting there, expecting, entertain me. Okay, I want some, high production values and all that kind of stuff. But if you have a personal brand in any way, then I think that the live stream actually shows a very raw, uncut version of yourself. So with the mistakes and everything, even today in the live stream today, in the middle of the live show, I had a phone call with an emergency and I had to go out the room for 10 minutes while the rest of the panel covered. I don't know if Nathan knows about that yet, but, and I came back, carried on, it was fine. You can't really do that, in other mediums. It's just kind of accepted.
So we've gone through a number of things on here first, and I think it's a good time here to ask a few questions, both that we're getting online and getting through the audience. So I'm just going to set up another shot with Nathan, with Paul. Sorry, I keep saying Nathan, and Paul knows because I keep doing this with him, so that he can see the room again. So if you give me 1 second just to set a new camera up. So we put Paul back there, and then put the room in there, and take the us off. Right.
Tom's running away from that being.
There you go. Oh.
Was that Tom Shoot running off there?
Yeah, it was. So while I'm just doing that, the other thing that you may have noticed, I'm putting these cameras are on on clamps. They're about £10 for these clamps. They're really useful. When you're sitting there, you do need tripods for certain things, but particularly when you're doing things at home, I find the clamps are really handy because you can just put something where you want and do that. Okay. Questions? I have a roaming microphone that Tommy's going to actually, because otherwise Paul can't hear you. If anybody has questions.
In the room, anybody? Straight away, very great.
Okay, I know nothing about all of this, so this is a really basic question, but we're talking about the casualness of live streaming, but can you then put it up as a recorded version that you can still access?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, it's a very good question. What we do, so for all of WordCamp London, in fact, actually for WordCamp Dublin that's just gone past, everything was in one room. I recorded everything live. I've got all the live recordings. I've actually edited a little bit of it. I just need to put a thing on the front and a thing on the end, and you can put it up. And I would actually even put as recorded live to give it that feel, to say this was a recorded live. Because people are still otherwise, they're looking for that quality, that I think it's the imparting of the information rather than the quality of the broadcast.
Yeah, a business perspective as well. Just to add in there, you probably hear people talking about content repurposing. So you could do a live stream that was with a panel or just a few people or even just yourself and just ad lib as you go along. And then afterwards, like you say, you could edit that if you wanted to into a video. You could also summarize it in a blog post, and you could also do a quick edit and have it as a podcast that you're releasing as well. So you could reach lots and lots of different audiences. And often I think people who are trying to create content, I know this because I struggle to create content. If I'm faced with a blank Word document or Google Docs and trying to write a blog post out, I really struggle. If I try and prepare a tutorial video or something, I really struggle, and I'll tell you something else about that in a bit. If someone asks me to go on their live stream, because I'm normally a guest, it's only today that I was actually running one, then I just have to use my mouth, temporarily and just think of things to say. And it's surprising how, especially if you put a bunch of questions in front of you and you just imaginary ask yourself the questions if you're going solo. But if you're not, if you're having a conversation, then just relax and have a conversation, and then you can get some great content out of that. And like I say, repurpose it to all sorts of different mediums.
But you mentioned about the echo or reverb that you get from the person on the screen talking. And one of the challenges we've got here is we've got people who work remotely, and there's a couple of people who work remotely too. When they join the meeting remotely, they get that reverb, echo thing going on. And I wondered, Paul, are you getting it now?
I'm not. I think it's probably because you've got some bigger speakers in there. But in terms of when we do a lot, I do a lot of kind of group calls with people who are remote and stuff. A lot, some of my whole team we're all in different places, and we don't get that too often. We do from time to time. Like for instance, today on our the Rupee Build show, Peach Neri, who some of you might know, was one of the panelists, and when before we went live, she was on and she didn't have a pair of headphones on. And it was totally feeding back. The sound was coming out of her computer, back into the microphone, and just going around in circles. And so I just asked her to put some headphones on, and that was fine. I tried to get the headphones working for today, but this is live streaming and stuff just doesn't work sometimes. For some reason, my headphones just won't take the sound out today. Fortunately, it's not too bad, I don't think. But I'm not hearing any echo back at my end. I think that this is more of a feedback loop on the monitors at your end, probably.
It's not even here that you're hearing it really, but I know that if you're watching this remotely, and I know, for example, and Herb is going to comment on this now because he's watching from Portsmouth.
I want her.
He will be hearing because of how Paul is going in and out, and it's just Paul's voice that's the worst bit, and I just haven't fixed it. It's not Paul's voice, but it's how we've got Paul coming in. But normally you would never relay him into the room. So that's the problem, and I've just got to try and, there's like a cable missing or something, but that's it.
Another trick from sound engineers. Sorry, another trick from sound engineers use a spectrum analyzer and try and kill out frequencies that cause the problem.
It's not that. It's not the frequency. It's a complete path that's coming through rather than just the. It's just you just can't. It's just because you're literally echoing it through. Yes, and we've tried. I've tried. I mean, I can turn the compressions on here, but it's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference for that. But this is a demonstration rather than a live thing, and that's it. So it does what it needs.
Can I ask a question as well?
Yeah.
Are there any tools for transcribing?
Oh, did you look who's standing by the door when you asked that question? Abba can give you a whole discussion about you all right, or shall I say it? Sorry, I'll introduce Abba, and Abba. Well, you can introduce yourself.
There are a whole lot of tools that you can use, and they're getting better. If you're not using it for a word count, one of the easiest things to do is to upload it as a private video onto YouTube, and then alter their automatic captions. And that is the easiest. If you're using it for a word count, or it's going to go on another YouTube channel, corporate channel, don't do that, because YouTube will also be automatically uploading it. Because it counts as a duplicate, and they'll block your account.
So
Google is about to supposedly also release something that will help do that. In terms of open source software, one of the best ones is Amara. Really easy to use, and it also allows you to synchronize the text. One of the issues of doing my stream this way is that the synchronization isn't always there. So I'm watching the talk here, and watching the video, and the mouth and the synchronization which is, it happens. But Amara makes that. Amara, Amara, and if you want to practice, then there are thousands of videos on WordPress TV, and we have a list of about 100 that we would love people to WordPress to subtitle ahead of time, because they're key videos about how to use WordPress and how to use this community. And the way recently I'm producing is how we subtitling campaign, which we've been taking out of WordPress.
So I am trying to see if I can get this to work. This is web captioner. It seems to work for me. I think it's coming off my microphone on my Mac, which makes sense because it's not picking up. That's picking up ABBA, but you can see it's actually picking me up quite well. What I can then do, this is where it gets really fun, is you see that on a green screen. I can actually green screen that back into the live feed.
That web captioner.
That's web captioner. And actually, it's not going too badly, is it? It's captioned me at a reasonable level, considering it's coming off there. Oh, very eloquent. There you go. There you go.
We use this for the
Sorry, I'll repeat it because otherwise Paul can't hear. We used it for the live in Dublin last week. So we literally had a screen up that does this, and then you can throw this to a separate window. It is quite good, and it's getting better and better. What is it using? It's using the Google, whatever Google's Alexa is called. What's it called? Google Home. Does she not? He have a name? They have a name. Sorry. Cloud Assistant. Google Assistant. Thank you. Actually, probably. I'm surprised that hasn't actually corrected what I said to tell us what its name is. So. Sorry. What was the? Do you want to ask in the mic?
Work with technical language. So
if I talked about WordPress and there you go. No, okay. No, it's not too bad. If I said React.js,
we did have to teach it.
PHP, yeah.
So for all the talks,
Oh.
for all the talks at Dublin, every speaker was asked to actually test it and then tell us which words it would understand, but also which accent it picked up, because you can choose languages.
Is this on?
No, this is web captioner.
This web caption is free. So what you do is you caption into a window. This is going to be interesting. Let's see if I can actually make this work. You're going to really like this. NDI. So we take an NDI scan converter. Right, just watch my battery go even more down. NDI scan converter. So we then choose what we're going to capture, which is Chrome. Where can I see Chrome? Google Chrome. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not seeing it. Hopefully it's that one. And then I go back into Ecamm Live, and I go into camera. And it should come in as a captioning screen. It hasn't come in. Oh, there it is. And then I bring it in as a captioning screen, which I then green screen, because obviously it's green. And then change the fade level. Come on, it's not going to do it. I'm pushing it too hard. But eventually you can bring it in, but we'll stop there because I'm going to kill it. But it's possible to do it all. If any of you are interested, this is a MacBook. This is the i9. So, and I'm still killing it. So so it does show you how doing all of this really does batter the living daylights out of machines. Particularly as I've got 4 cameras and screens. Yeah, Tom.
With that in mind, if you're doing a whole conference,
yep, it's easy.
You've got 2 power sockets going to that. You haven't got any more.
No, I know. I've got two power sockets, and I'm already going to. Yeah,
it wouldn't last the whole.
It will, because of if I plug it in at the first thing of the day and keep it at 100%, I'm fine. It's like once you start dropping, you can't catch up, and also you don't normally stream the whole thing. Why is it doing it? Also, the other reason is that I'm pushing out to get I don't normally have that plugged in to get a screen up, and that box takes a big draw, but it actually also allows me to plug a second power in. It's just how they haven't. It's Apple have pretended that they can actually get away with it, but they can't get away with on this machine on power. But that's not what we're here about. So there's lots and lots of ways. As you can see, we brought in lots of other things in there. Somebody asked me about bringing in an iPhone or a mobile phone.
I've got loads of them.
What mobile phone? Broken screens.
Yeah,
So
the kids are using them to play with it.
there's Epoch Cam is a piece of software. You start up Epoch Cam onto your phone like that, and I can click on there, and Paul disappears, and that phone now appears as the screen. So This is using a technology called NDI. Both of the things that I've just used are called NDI. NDI is how you send. I'll put Paul back so you don't have to look at the screen and I get confused. NDI is the technology that's coming out that puts, or is out, that's pushing everything video and audio over Ethernet. And we're seeing that more and more. It does work over wireless, but it really works over Ethernet. The objective of NDI will be that you'll have a TV like this and it'll just have an NDI address, and all you do is you're able to push it. The interesting thing on the collection on the cameras, the one that they're using is what 3 words? Is anybody familiar with what 3 words? So you will literally be able to be, as an outside broadcast person, say my camera is light tree desk, and they go light tree desk, bang, and the camera will come on. That's how it's working. And then when you move the camera to somewhere else, they'll be doing that. That's how they're doing it all. Very, very clever. Very clever way of bringing the two technologies together. Is anybody? I've talked about what 3 words, and I'm just suddenly realising. Does anybody know what does anybody sort of go what?
Location.
It's a location device. So what 3 words is a way of describing a square, 3 meters, a 3 meter square anywhere in the world. So every 3 meter square everywhere in the world has its own 3 words. Paul, do you know what your 3 words are? No idea.
No. I know at least. No, I know about 5 words. So. I got my GCSEs.
So if you have a look on the app, you'll find. If you look at what 3 words, you'll find that what 3 words I'm sitting. This is what 3 words I'm sitting in. Resort Bless Copper, I think. Am I? I know it's moved me slightly. I'm now in Success Memo Tower. I'm Success Memo Tower. That's probably your. That's it. So your whatever you are there, and that 3 words are the same. Fever.
Leo?
Fever found of orange. Yes, Paul.
Have you heard of at all? I know Nathan Wrigley's just started using called descript.com.
No, talk to us about it.
So it's a transcribing tool. What you can actually do, you can upload your video or your audio, and you can edit the video by editing the text. So it first of all transcribes everything you said, and then you can just start removing chunks of the video. So as you start changing the video, it actually starts chopping bits out for you really, really quickly. So it's really quick to edit. And from what I understand, if I've got this right, you can actually add words in that you didn't say, and it listens to your voice and tries to, so if you kind of mess up a sentence or something, you can actually retype that, and it will have a go at trying to correct that. From what I understand from Nathan, I think he told me that you have to upload, as many hours of audio of yourself talking as possible so it can learn your voice. But the main thing I was talking about really was that the transcribing that it does and the quick editing. So you can edit both the text and the video at the same time. And you can choose what you edit. You can edit the video and the text changes, or you can edit the text and the video changes, or the
So
audio.
it's very similar to how they were doing some. I saw some stuff where they were taking dead actors, if that's the right term, and putting them in films that they weren't in, re-editing.
Yep,
them.
I guess that's what they're doing. Yeah, it's filtered. I guess that technology, as usual with everything, is filtered down.
Yeah.
And now we can get it for $15 a month instead of whatever it cost at the beginning.
One of the other things I forgot to mention is how I actually brought Nathan in. So Nathan is at. Paul. Sorry, I've done this talk 3 times. This is that's it. Sorry, Paul.
My ego's taking a bashing.
Yeah, that's it. So how I brought Paul in is using Skype. So it's a straightforward Skype call. Using the standard Skype, but you'll see also it says NDI in there. So actually how the camera is brought in is that bit that I talked about earlier. It's coming in on NDI, so it's the same technology. I haven't seen this one support. What the one you used today, what did it support? It wasn't using Skype, was it?
It was its own system, so it was a totally browser-based thing. So you'd log in, and then I sent an invite link, a URL to 3 other panelists. They clicked it, they entered the browser thing, so they're all using the browser, I'm using the browser. And StreamYard can actually stream to multiple locations, so we could have just done it with our computers, mics, and StreamYard. But the reason we used Restream was because Nathan had already got Restream hooked up to all his different media channels. So that's why we hooked up, we put StreamYard and just streamed one of those, the one output from StreamYard into Restream, and then Restream did all the distributing for us, and also Restream does all the things like the social posting. So when you go live, it automatically posts onto those particular channels and says, hey, we're going live on Facebook now and stuff. So yeah, you can see the stuff in there. But interestingly, with this descript.com tool as well, you know, with Leo calling me Nathan every couple of minutes, we could use descript.com if we were repurposing that for the non-mistake version to edit out. And I don't know, maybe you could even type in.
We'll wait to see if how much of your podcast, your thing today, would need to be re-edited.
Yeah, a good 10 minutes. A good 10 minutes when it wasn't even there. So
yeah, that's it. You put your
and the first 10 minutes. Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? Yes.
I think the best type of content comes from conversations. And you mentioned something about repurposing content. Do you plan for it before you do the live stream? And if you don't, do you have any tips?
This is all planned, isn't it, Paul?
Well, I've been on quite a few live streams, and some people plan it. They've literally got a whole content plan mapped out in advance. So somewhere around here, it's just I'm not going to go and get it, but over there I've got a content planner. It's like a book that you can write in. You can timetable all your things. So you can say record live stream on this day, 2 days later edit it, repurpose it onto here. Okay, tweet that 10 times with different different titles and different angles or different quotes from the content over the next 14 days, then wait a while, then create a blog post, and you can map that all out. So the person who actually created that guide, it's called the content planner. I think it's called the content planner, is Kim Doyle, who is a podcaster and a live streamer. She still does a podcast, but a lot of the time now she's switching to doing a lot more live streaming, but she's repurposing stuff. So she's planning who her guests are, how she can repurpose that, and really she's, people who do this really well, which isn't me, I just turn up and say stuff, but people who do this really well are backward planning from a goal. So they're thinking, who's my audience I want to reach? Okay, working backwards, what messages do I want to get out there? How can I create that content? And one of those ways is to start with live streams, get other interesting people to come in, say good stuff, then you can repurpose their quotes. You can leverage their audiences because they're going to promote the content that they're in. So it's really a case of thinking about what you want to do, backwards planning, and then just getting started, I think.
Thank you.
I've seen YouTube live streams before, and usually it's the case that you can go back after the event and see it again if you missed it. So I haven't been taking any notes. But is the software that you're using recording all the video streams at the same time?
Yes, so I'm recording everything that we're doing is actually being recorded onto my Mac. At the same time, it's going live, as we said, onto YouTube and onto Facebook. So both of those are recording, and you can, within I think 20 minutes or less, you can sit there and do a replay of it. I think it's almost instantaneous. The quality that I record onto the Mac is slightly higher, or it should be, and normally I use that, and I find I then just put in a couple of extra cuts that I need, mainly to replace the word Nathan with Paul, as we've said, and that's it. But you can just put the cuts in.
So you get to add your B-roll at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good question in reverse of why we do, as Paul has already said. it's the objective that you're trying to do. And we've only really talked in this discussion about how we're using this for effectively promotion of podcasts or effectively promotion of technology. One of the things I would recommend you doing is that the software that, as I said, that I use is Ecamm. If you look on Ecamm, if you go onto Facebook, they have a Facebook group on Ecamm, and this is, I find, great. If I'm now, hopefully it's going to come up, the live community. And in the live community, they have a number of conversations, and they give talks about various different elements, and they have on a regular basis a meet the professionals, of which I don't think they're ever going to invite Paul and myself to, but they have a meet the professionals, and they talk about different people who use it and how they use it. There's a meet the professionals, and how they do it. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. The stuff that we haven't talked about on here is, as you saw, there's titling, there's various different other elements that you can do in this, and it does it all for you. I've seen in America in particular, as they lead in a lot of other things, there are people who are doing house builds, there are people who are doing DIY stuff, there's people who are doing anything and everything, are doing their own streams. I guess what's happening is they're coming off main media and they're using it in other media as their way to reach out to people. In an area that I'm involved in, I get involved in streaming with churches and synagogues. Some of those are hitting 1,000 people watching on a regular basis, and when they then do any of their recordings afterwards, they're getting a lot of people watching it. And why? Because they're reaching out to people who would generally couldn't make it on a Saturday or Sunday. They're reaching people who are abroad but want to stay in touch with their community. So if you're building sites for that area of it's a great way. Also, we had a great discussion when I was down in Portsmouth about a family-run business that does selling of boats, and if there ever is a way of saying, here is a listing for a boat, nobody's interested. Here is a live walk around of the boats that we've got, and here are the boats that we've got for sale, and it brings it all to life and people are doing it. The bit I would add to that, and this is where live streaming always works, is the FOMO element. So the fear of missing out. Because it's live, you're always sitting there going, well, something could happen that actually I won't catch if I watch it later. So you sit there and listen to it. Paul, do you know how many people were watching you today?
Yeah, so I think there was probably I think it went up to about 19 live. And then what typically happens with the WP Builds weekly WordPress news show is that after about a week, usually around 600 people have watched it. So the actual amount of live people tend to be those people engaging in the discussion while it's happening. So we had 60 comments from around 19 different people. And like I say, within a week that'll be up to about 600 views. But a lot of the people who watch it after don't comment as much. They'll just be re-watching the content. And there definitely is a FOMO thing. That word came into my mind as well before you said it, because you're aware that people have actually gone and watched this, rather than when you're scrolling through YouTube and you've got a million videos to go through and they're trying to reach out at you with the graphics and stuff. Knowing that a bunch of people were watching something live has some kind of engagement about it. Plus, you also don't feel that it's going to be so overly corporate when it's live streamed, at least at the moment. Until the marketing world figures it out, and then live streaming will go up in flames as well as everything else.
Do you have another question?
No, thanks.
This one's for you, Paul.
Okay.
My question. Just going back to the fact that people said about the live streaming and preparing, so I can't re-raise that question. Leo and I are doing a guide for Make WordPress, and the campaign team is going to come out next year. Just putting that on the tape so he'll remember. And one of the things that the live stream that's really important is just be aware of what's in your background, because you can't change it.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I was more Paul may be able to spot what's in the background just below ABBA in this bottom corner here. Can you see the name?
What does he want?
Somehow Vito has got into this stream, even though he's not even here. So
we've done live streams for big corporate events where someone's emails come up, including So you've had around breach of data. Not great to do live streaming at the same time. But also we've had people who've spoken about their wonderful product, not realising the bottle on the table is for their competitor, and that doesn't have the problems. So it's just thinking about what's in the back. Don't worry about the makeup as much, but as much as what's on the table, and what you could be inadvertently endorsing, what could be a problem for your sponsors, or what you really wish you could edit. If you're going to show web captions, one of the dangers is if the web captions comes up with something interesting. I don't know how you deal with that. I know we had that problem last year with Belfast, and web capture has come on a huge way since then. But last year we had to pull the plug, and we had to be aware that if it came up with something really odd, to pull the plug. So it's just thinking about that. Preparation does allow you to do what you do, and as Paul said, the opportunities to slice things to get to the heart of something is fabulous. The offer you mentioned, Paul, I use that commercially, and it has some really good elements to it, but the paid for version of it is a lot better.
StreamYard, is that one?
Anybody who is using charity, they do give you quite substantial discounts.
Well, I used it for the first time today that I'd ever used it, and we went live on a live show, so it must have been fairly easy if I could do it. I think like you were saying as well, do plan ahead, but don't get too hung up on that, because especially if you're just getting started in this, you're probably going to have it's probably not going to be the most engaging content at first, because you're going to be very self-aware, all those kind of things. So what you can do is just get started, and then once you get your own groove and feel how it's going, then start planning backwards from a bigger plan. So, just as an example, we're planning on starting a sub part of our business soon that is in and around funnels for software companies, to try and get people booked onto sales calls for the software. And one thing that we know is that with all the companies that we talk to in and around funnels, that one of their biggest problems is creating the engaging content that works up to the funnels. So we've been starting to create a massive series of 10 blog posts and a bunch of videos, which I'm doing as interviews with people, so that we can make sure that we're able to reassure that our future clients that we can help them with their content needs by showing that we've created a whole bunch of content for it. So it might seem to people at the moment that I'm randomly creating articles about content creation and user personas and that sort of stuff, which is not the normal things that I'd write about, but it's because I've got a backwards plan that is going towards that. Also, I've been doing this for a while, so I'm happy talking on camera, and it is weird the first couple of times you see yourself on camera or hear yourself. I'd probably sound pretty weird to everyone there. I'm from the West Midlands and everything, so you just have to get used to those sort of things, and it takes time. So don't get too stuck by trying to create the master plan first. Just get started. Probably no one will even watch it at first, and then you can figure out, start ironing out the issues and improving, and then starting to look at who your actual audience is.
Thank you, Paul. I'd add to that very quickly that I listen to a lot of podcasts. If you ever go back to the beginning of the very first few episodes of the podcast, most of the podcast people say, we don't want you to listen to the first few because we didn't get any good until we'd done a number, and it's absolutely true. But you don't get good if you don't start them. And arguably that Paul and I have got a long way to go before we get any good. But we're trying on that.
Have you showed those slides that you created? Because I think they're really useful.
So which ones?
So in between live streams.
So Abba's asked a question about holding screens, and I did start with a very quick the screen that I created, this one,
Actually, Relay that isn't on AppSumo anymore, but there is a streaming deal on there called B.Live. From what I understand, it's like a kind of cheaper version of some of the tools that we talked about today.
I think we've got a pizza delivery that has arrived. We've got time for maybe one quick question or any sort of wrap ups that everybody needs to do. Unfortunately, we can live stream pizzas to YouTube, but maybe we can put the camera.
The last thing, and I have to give you, because it is one of my talks, and it's the only way that I ensure that I get any good comments afterwards, is free chocolate. So I have free chocolate that I always give away at all my talks. So I will pass that round before you can have your thing. So I think at this point we should say goodbye to Paul.
So thanks
is there
again, calling me Nathan there. You almost
I called you
Relay
Paul.
that
this
is on
time.
AppSumo, Chris says. Yeah, so it is. It's right down the list actually. So yeah, Relay that is on. Thank you everybody for having me. I'd love to come up and I'm hoping to come to the next Brighton WordCamp. Actually, I've meant to come a few times and haven't made it, but it's a long way. But hopefully see you there. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to stop the feed, which will then stop the feeds on your phones. Thanks a lot.